Republican from Florida, and Democratic Representative Xavier Becerra of California, who discussed the immigration issue with the president on Tuesday. I want to start with you, Congressman Becerra, and I want you to listen to this. We reached out today to Mario Solis-Marich, who you know is an influential radio host and blogger in the Latino community. He wanted the president to keep his promise to deal with this issue in his first year in office. He listened to the speech today. He doesn't sound too impressed.
The problem is that a year ago, this would have been an extremely effective speech. The situation as it is right now calls for more than just speech making. It calls for action, and this speech did not contain a call to action. Therefore, while it was a wonderfully written speech, beautifully delivered, and clearly an impassioned speech, the speech was not that effective.
Congressman Becerra, when you talk to the president and when you talk to your leadership and you're a member of the leadership, will you bring it to the floor this year, or is the president just trying to say, well, I'm trying?
John, I think first, Mario is just reflecting the frustration that everyone feels, whether it's someone like Mario who's more progressive or someone who's more conservative. And we saw what happened in Arizona, where the conservatives passed what I think is a flawed law. But the reality is this, and I hope Mario would concur with me. If we could find a few courageous senators, Republican senators, right now, we could pass immigration reform.
Let me interrupt right there. Let me interrupt there. I get the argument, and I get the math, and I get the dicey politics, but you have a nearly 80-seat majority in the House. I know you want the Senate to go first on this issue because the House thinks the Senate leaves it hanging all the time. But if you have an 80-seat majority in the House, why not force your colleague's hand? Why don't you say, if you Republicans really support this, we're going to force you to vote for it because we're going to bring it to the floor?
Well, I wish we had an 80-seat. We have about a 37-seat majority. But the reality is this. There are 350 bills that are sitting in the Senate that we have passed. We've done our work. Energy reform, you name it, we've done it. We're waiting for the Senate to act. When the Senate can't find one Republican who will say, we'll help you get to 60 votes, if the Senate Republican is going to require a supermajority filibuster-proof vote, then it's impossible to get a bill to the president. The president said it today. The mathematical and political reality here is we need to have Senate Republicans come forward. They were there before about 3 or 4 years ago, 11 of them. We just need to see a few of them.
Congressman Diaz-Balart, he is right on that point. There were 11 Republicans, including John McCain, including the leader Mitch McConnell, who supported moving forward on this issue just a few years ago on essentially the same bill that you would adopt today. You might even get tougher border security measures in a bill now than you would have a few years ago. Why not?
Well, you know, it's intriguing that 4 months before the election, all of a sudden the president remembers that he promised this. And he said that he was going to do this in the first 12 months of his administration. By the way, Speaker Pelosi promised it also, I believe, in the first year. That was, what, 3 years ago? And here's the reality. Hey, look, it's much better to get bipartisan support for anything. But the reality is that if the president really wants it, if the Speaker really wants it, it can become law. It can become law right away. And, you know, your question is right on. Why not bring it forward in the House? I guarantee you we can get bipartisan support in the House. You're seeing it right here. We can pass it out of the House, have a good bill, and then let's continue to work the Senate. But the reality is this. By the way, I agree with the person that spoke a little while ago. It was a great speech, but rhetoric does not mean leadership. He gave a lot of credit to President Bush. When President Bush tried to get it done, and it's a heavy lift. If otherwise, it would have been done a long time ago.
And Republicans in the Senate killed it then.
It's a heavy lift. But when he tried to get it done, he had 2 cabinet members lobbying the House and the Senate. And all we've gotten from President Obama is beautiful rhetoric, but no action, no leadership. It took, you know, he got health care reform passed. He got a stimulus package passed, by the way, with only Democratic votes. Here in the House, we could get bipartisan support. There is bipartisan support. It requires presidential leadership. We haven't seen it in this issue. We haven't seen it in the Gulf. And we're seeing the results.
Let me ask you a question on the substance. I want you to listen to something the president said today, because the president went beyond where I think some Democrats and even some Republicans are prepared to go if you could finally have a vote. Let's listen.
To be required to register, pay their taxes, pay a fine, and learn English. They must get right with the law before they can get in line and earn their citizenship.
I may be dreaming to think we could possibly have a vote on this year, even in a lame duck session, but the president said earn their citizenship. Is there support in the Congress, even if you could put your election year politics aside, for citizenship for those who entered the country illegally, or is a path to legal status as far as you could go?
Who do you want to answer that?
John, I'll take that.
We can both take a stab at that.
I would say this. You have to be able to get legal status. That's the core principle here, is to give folks a path to come out of the shadows. If they become citizens, they still have a long way to go. They have to prove many other things to become citizens, along with the responsibilities of paying taxes, staying right by the law, not becoming public charges. They're going to have to do a number of other things to be able to show that they can become citizens. But the issue here is, can we get them on a path where they'll come out of the shadows? And that's where we need that bipartisan support. Mario, unless you can show me the math, and we can, if there's a new math in the Senate, Democrats by themselves cannot get to 60 votes. So unless you're saying the Republicans will stop filibustering, we can't get there without a bipartisan vote.
Let me ask you one more question on the substance. I want you to listen to the president, because Republicans always say border security first, Mr. President, then we'll talk about this other stuff. The president said today that's a false argument. Let's listen.
Contrary to some of the reports that you see, crime along the border is down. And statistics collected by Customs and Border Protection reflect a significant reduction in the number of people trying to cross the border illegally. So the bottom line is this: the southern border is more secure today than at any time in the past 20 years.
And yet a woman who has in some ways become the face of the Republican Party on this issue, the Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, since signing the law, she begs to differ with the president. Let's listen to Governor Brewer.
Washington says our border is as safe as it has ever been. Does this look safe to you? What is our country coming to? We will not surrender any part of Arizona. We need to stand up and demand action. Washington is broken, Mr. President. Do your job. Secure our borders. Arizona and the nation are waiting.
Congressman Diaz-Balart, who's right?
Well, I think, frankly, it's pretty evident that the whole system is broken. And obviously the people in Arizona and the border states are frustrated because we do have a situation where there are many, many illegals coming across the borders. And I think there's probably a national consensus that the United States has the right, I would tell you the obligation, to secure our borders. But we also then need to deal with the underlying issue. And I think there is bipartisan support in the House to do that, to secure the borders, to have a real process of secure borders.
Then why not pass a bill and call the Senate's bluff? If all this support is there, then do it. But why don't you do it in the House?
That's exactly right. Well, that's what we want to do, and that's what we keep asking the leadership of the House. Why don't we do it in the House first? Let's pass a good, responsible bill that secures the borders, that deals with the situation, that helps our economy, that helps our national security, and let's sit down in a real fashion with the Senate to try to obtain the votes. And again, lip service.
Why not, Congressman Becerra?
John, that's what all the folks that wanted to see health care reform said. That's what everyone who wanted to see energy reform said. That's what everyone who wanted to see Wall Street reform said. And in every case, the House has moved. And what we find is that it always bogs down in the Senate because of the 60-vote supermajority filibuster-proof requirement that the Republicans in the Senate are requiring. We haven't seen one Republican. John McCain, AWOL. Lindsey Graham, AWOL. Where are the Republicans it'll take to make this happen? In the House, Mario is correct. We will have a bipartisan vote. In the Senate, politics prevail.
All right, gentlemen, I need to call it a night there. I guess the question in this debate is who's on first or who goes first. Congressman Diaz-Balart, Congressman Becerra, thank you very much.
We need to go first. We need to go first.
We'll check back in as we'll go forward. Thank you, gentlemen.